It's really about orientation. It's about what orients you moment to moment. Some of us are oriented around problems and issues that we have. Others are oriented around what they want to create. You can make the subject matter of your life what you want to create. In other words, you orient your choices around what really matters to you. Now, I'm not talking about what should matter. I'm not talking about what someone else said should matter. We're not talking about living up to someone else's expectations or goals. We're talking about being pulled by what does matter to you. So let's consider what really matters to you without any reference to your past. I mean, imagine you're able to start your life again and you can set it up any way you want to. What do you want to accomplish? How do you want to spend your time? To what do you want to dedicate your energy? What do you want to create during your lifetime? What do you want to create that will last beyond your lifetime? When Bill Gates decided to start Microsoft, he wanted to see a computer in every home in the world. That's not something he's going to get to in his own lifetime. But it drived his current choices. So, for example, you might say, well, if I did it again, I would do this, I would do that. Would you be doing what you're doing now? Would you be doing the career that you've chosen? Would you be with the relationships that you're currently with? Would you be handling the kind of responsibilities that you have in your life now? Would you be in the environments and the places that you go to now? Who are some of the people that you admire? What is it about them that you admire? Are they good models for you? Do you have similar aspirations, desires, and values, and characteristics and motives? What do you currently have in your life that matters to you? Who are the people that matter to you? What are the aspects that matter to you? If you were at the end of your life and you were looking back on this period, what would stand out as important to you? See, the answers to these questions are very personal. There aren't any rule books or common practices that can tell you what should matter. They either do or do not. You can't manufacture what matters to you. There's nothing superficial about it. It either does matter or it doesn't matter. Now, what I'm talking about is bringing something into being, causing it to exist because it matters enough to do that. Isn't that a great source for learning? I mean, you probably will learn the way you want to learn. And what a great way to learn by setting up something that you truly want to create and learning your way to create it. Because there is a discrepancy between what you may have now in the current state versus what you really want to create in the desired state. And by virtue of that, there is a void, there's a gap, and a real architecture for learning and acquisition and assimilation of new capabilities, new skills, learning by doing, by trying, by failing, by adjusting, and then increasing your capabilities by replanning, retooling, relearning, and going through that process enough times until you get it. It's kind of like falling off a bull. You know, you go out, you get bucked off. You go out, you get bucked off. You go out, you get bucked off about 6 times, and then finally the 7th time you say, I'm going to hang on to this bull because I've learned all 6 times how to become better in encounter number 7 with the bull. And that's just the way it works. Creating is not situational. It's not problem solving. Most people know precisely what they don't want to create. They have a negative vision of what they're avoiding, and that's what's driving them to do what they do. It's really important in articulating the desired state of the results you desire to create that you realize when you want it because you're trying to get rid of your current or undesired circumstances. The alternative would be a desired state that you naturally are wired to want. It's like a natural urge that just is for its own sake. And remember, love is generative, not only receptive, but it's generative, without any circumstantial orientation. So here are some more exercises to help distinguish between these two approaches. One is the reactive one from the circumstances that you don't want. The other is a proactive, creative orientation to take delivery of circumstances, situations, outcomes, results that you do want. Question number 1. If you had a heart attack and had to work 2 hours per day, what would you do? If you had a second heart attack and had to work 2 hours per week, what would you do? What are the top 3 activities that you use to fill time to feel as though you've been productive? What are the top 3 activities that you use to fill time to feel as if you've been very productive? So if this is the only thing that you accomplished that day, would you be satisfied with your day? Would you be on purpose? Would it be taking you to where you want to be? Next question. What would you do if you knew you could not fail? What would you do? I'm asking you to take away anything you've known in the past about your abilities. That means you've had absolutely no experience up to this point of how you've done it. That means you haven't collected any conclusions or observations about your capabilities. You haven't scored yourself. So that means fear is completely silent. There is no fear at all. So going forward, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? I mean, what would you do if you went into the future and you knew that no matter what was going to happen, you could not fail? What would you do? And if you were to characterize yourself at your very, very best at some point that you remember, now I'm asking you to reflect on the past, how would you describe it? Really give that some thought. If you were to characterize yourself at the very, very best moment, at your very, very best at some point, when was it and how would you describe it? Now, let's say that you had unlimited time and money. Unlimited. There was no limited time. There was no limited money. What would you do with your time? So let's imagine I deposited $50 million in your bank account. Wouldn't that be exciting? What would you do? Again, the exercise is to help you organize your situation, your choices around what matters to you that you want to create, what matters enough to see exist. Now, some of the things in your life may already matter to you. Maybe you want to maintain them. But maybe there are other beholdings in your heart. Maybe there are other things that you really want to create that you haven't brought into being and you really want to. Aspects of your life, certain outcomes, projects, things that might make a difference to an audience, products. In your world, there might be something that you want to create. And again, I'm asking you to go back to your heart, take away the limits of time and money and any thought of failing, and then ask yourself, okay, what would I do? If those were the conditions that I was in, what would I want to create? You see, being overwhelmed, and haven't we all felt that way at some time, can be as unproductive as doing nothing and is far more unpleasant. You've got to do less because being selective is the path of the productive. The key to having more time, which can be spent doing truly meaningful or enjoyable activities, is doing less. And this requires a shorter to-do list, as well as a not-to-do list. Time management is pretty much worthless. Why? Because you shouldn't try to do more in each day, which is called a results-by-volume approach. Effectiveness is actually doing the things that get you closer to your goal, while efficiency is performing a task, important or not, in the most economical manner possible. Doing something unimportant well does not make it important, and requiring a lot of time does not make a task important. And getting good at something you hate is also counterproductive, especially when you get into debt doing it. because you get locked in by paying so many expenses, really paying for getting good at something, getting a reputation, putting your kids in school around it, getting a big mortgage, and then you can't get out of it. So we're zeroing in on your long and your short-term orientation. It's been said that simplicity begins with a hierarchy of importance, and that signifies what is most important to you. Notice I said what is most important to you. See, everything cannot be equal. Where would you find the space for it all? We all have 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week. We're all living in the same container. So I'm talking about what you value. Let's examine both short and long-term aspects of your values and vision. In the short term, what are the most important aspects in your life right now? What aspects of your life do you want to maintain this year, and which do you want to change? What defines your life right now? What way and manner do you want to live your life? Now let's go back to the long term. What do you want to devote your life to? Do you have a sense of calling or a deeply meaningful cause? What is it? Either you give meaning to your life or something else does, a cause. Now, I'm not saying that you must know what will happen in life. Don't get me wrong here. I'm sure many new aspects and items will arrive unexpectedly. Nevertheless, you can stack the possibility of your desires materializing by having a focus. Some people find difficulty in defining what they really want because it doesn't exist yet. It's new territory that you're going to count on because, well, it's just that you've imagined it to become. Whether it is or isn't as significant as what it does to you to get you there. It's not what your vision or outcome is. The fact that you have a picture of it and it does something to you, it manifests your senses in terms of what you see, hear, and feel as if you were already there. It's really about what the vision does to you. Okay, so I'm going to go back and review. I've talked about this concept of what matters to you, and that you can identify and orient yourself in the present around what really matters to you. And that means what you love enough to see exist. It's the generative side of love. There are short-term and long-term aspects. When you take away limiting conditions like time, money, or fear, what comes up? What would you do if you knew you could not fail? Who are some of the people that you admire? If you had a chance to live your life over again, what would you have done differently? You begin comparing and contrasting what you have in your life and what you don't. And you begin to conceive of the possibilities. This is called conceptualization. It's a conceptual process. Understand that you're not making choices yet. You're just simply considering what really matters to you, going back and forth between different ideas. And by doing this, you come upon a place where your hierarchy of what's important to you begins to take shape. You begin to say, well, that matters less and this matters more. When you live a life of what matters to you, you're pleasurably involved in what you're doing, and you have unending energy. Your passion just buoys to the top because what you're doing is directly what you truly care about. Imagine getting up in the morning with that sense of orientation, with that sense of purpose, with that sense of being involved and being meaningfully doing something that directly connects you to where you're going. I mean, can you imagine the peace of mind, the serenity that you'll have? Just imagine that when you connect to it. And what you get also out of this is that what matters to you is not something that you can discover. It's something that you can consider. You see, there's individuals that they're like on this giant treasure search, and they're going through workshop after workshop, going through training after training, and what they're really on is they're out to find a fulfilling life. And they suddenly realize, I mean, they may go through a whole lifetime of this, but hopefully they'll realize and wake up from the deep sleep and the hypnosis that really it's not about something you can discover. You can consider what matters to you. It's not something to be discovered. Now, what mattered to you may not matter anymore. You've been given a mind that has the ability to change itself. You can change your mind at any time. But the point is that you know what matters at any given moment. And I think that's what really time management is about, that you use your time effectively by knowing what really matters at any given moment and making a choice on behalf of it. It enables you to act in a very productive way on behalf of something that you are linked to, rather than just operating by default and reacting and responding to the circumstances. There's something really powerful about living by a life plan and staying deeply connected to something that you really care about now and then.